Imagine a world where silence no longer suffocates, where the shadows of mental health stigma are chased away by the light of understanding. This is our mission, to break the chains of ignorance, to shatter the silence that holds us captive. We stand together, united in a cause greater than ourselves, to give a voice to the voiceless and strength to the weary, because every struggle, every battle with mental health deserves to be seen. Join us as we rise, as we challenge, as we transform. Together, we will end the stigma around mental health. Together, we will change the world. One voice, one story, one person at a time.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Who We Are podcast, a mental health podcast with yours truly, Zach Moloch. And today I have with me a very, very special guest, and this is Amanda Cunningham. Hi, Amanda.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
We're all giggles right now just because we've been planning this for a long time.
Yeah.
I think the first time it came up was probably about 6 months ago. We just toyed with the idea of what if we could have a podcast? What if we could have a public discussion about what's going on? And it's finally here. So I'm just really excited.
Yes.
Yep.
It is good timing.
So I'm going to let Amanda introduce herself, and then she's going to own this episode. I'm here to partner with you in this, and I'm definitely going to be a sounding board, and I have my own experiences to add for sure. And we're going to unpack a lot of stuff that has to do with Lake Point Church, and it's very, very difficult for me to say this out loud. Actually, it's Lake Point Church was mine and my wife Beverly's home for 22 to 25 years, give or take, obviously a couple of years, but we got married there, baptized our kids there. Lake Point, that was just our home, and it was for you and your family as well. And so to have this conversation is, it's heartbreaking. We want everybody to know that this is not a conversation that anybody plans to have. But at the same time, with what we went through and the experiences that we've had, we want to hopefully, save some others the hardship, or at least give them some resources and a path moving forward from church hurt. So take it away on who you are, Amanda.
Okay. Well, again, thank you for doing this. Thank you for making this possible. This is not anything I ever wanted to do. As I brought up things that really stood out to me as different than how I was raised in the faith at Lake Point, I hoped they were never true. I kept thinking, surely this isn't true. And so as grateful as I'm you're doing this, I wish we didn't have to.
Mhm.
But I am Amanda. My husband and I and our two girls moved to Rock Hall in 2011. And 2013 was when we kind of gave in and started going to Lake Point. Friends invited us, and I was not about the megachurch, but I started to think, hey, if my husband wants to go to a church, I should try it at least. And we walked in, both had divorces in our past, and they started preaching on fixing your marriage. They launched Reengage, and I was not ever a Christian, raised Catholic, but it never really stuck. And so when I heard about that, I thought, oh, that could be free marriage counseling. So he doesn't even have to be upset that we're spending, $100 an hour on a therapist. So I thought, well, we'll just sort out all the scripture and just get some good practical tips. I had no idea those precious people, were showing up every week to teach us the gospel. And it hit me. I mean, week 4, I think, is forgiveness.
Mm.
And we had this conversation on the back porch that he came back to the faith. I gave my life to Christ. Of course, I didn't know that's what it was called then. But after that, we started serving right away. And this was obviously the only home church we'd ever known. We raised our girls there. I was baptized. They were both baptized, served all over. And it was over 13 years. So it's just a lot.
Yeah.
It's been a lot.
So a lot of people might know you from your social media. Your social media it's very colorful, but it's great. I say that with the compliment. Please
like
take that.
Colorful.
Yeah, well, just because it's exciting. But one might say it's exciting for the wrong reasons, but just because of what we're talking about. It's just heartbreaking to have to discuss this. But you can definitely find a lot of information about Amanda and about what we talk about on her social media platforms. So on your Instagram and Facebook profiles, you describe yourself as a writer, reader, adventurer, and disciple focused on identity in Christ. How has your personal faith journey and view of church leadership evolved through your time at Lake Point and decision to leave?
Ooh, Um, so when we came into reengage, served or went through the program and immediately started serving, I mean, we went through a vetting process and, we made sure that we were authentic and really on the right path. But I didn't know anything about ministry.
Mhm.
And I am a very all or nothing kind of person. So I went searching for every resource, every book, every class, every conference I could go to figure out what it was and how to do it well immediately. And obviously, I was surrounded by great leaders who had been, leading in the faith a long time. But um, there were just things I noticed along the way that I was like, what is right, what is wrong? And so I just had to learn the word. I had to
Mhm.
mature in my knowledge and faith and, started going to Bible study fellowship, really intense Bible study to learn as fast as I could. Felt very supported. Lake Point, when I was there for the 13 years before we left, really about 10 of those years, there was just a lot of support and freedom and trust and faith. And there just felt like there was a power there. People were being so
Mhm.
authentic. And I was like, wow, people have been so wrong about the church. Like
Yep.
they're really doing good things. They really do love, they really are selfless. And then, we had heard there was going to be a handing off. I mean, 40 years is a long time to
Mhm. Very
run a
long
church.
time.
So we had been prepared for a long time. We'd never seen that play out. And then when Josh came in, we just trusted him right away because
We did.
Steve chose him and we trusted him and their leadership.
We loved him.
And yeah.
Absolutely loved him.
So, and they stood up on stage. I remember that one sermon where they were like, "Hey, we want to be very clear. We have the same theology. We have the same beliefs on women in ministry. We have the same beliefs on not talking about politics from the pulpit." They were on the same page. And
Mhm.
over time, Phil was really the first one to bring up some concerns, and I just kept brushing it off because this had become my whole life.
Mhm.
We were breaking generational chains and really becoming authentic Christians. So all my old friends have fallen away.
Mhm.
This had become my family. And so when things started to be off, I kept silencing it.
Mhm.
It wasn't until our girls really were like, this isn't right, that I was like, "Ah, okay, we've been noticing things." And so there was obviously lots of instances, but that was basically the gist was, wow, things are very different now.
Mhm.
Things have changed so much. And how did that happen?
You're exactly right, and we don't know how that happened. That's what we're trying to get to the bottom of
Yeah.
is that, the term bait and switch, I think, is used a lot, anytime we talk, and that's exactly what we feel like happened. We were, we trust Pastor Steve Stroop, and he had this 5-year succession plan, bringing in Josh Howardson. We thought it was done almost effortlessly. It was incredible, and just hats off to Steve Stroop and his leadership team for the succession plan. There was nothing wrong with that part of it. But the first couple of years when Josh made his entrance, there was definitely that warm, cuddly feeling of like, okay, we can get on board with this. And like you kind of mentioned, we just kind of noticed some things shifting, and it was very weird for us to look at each other basically at the same time and be like, "Hey, did he say that?"
Mm,
Or like, "What does he mean by that?" Or is almost like looking around, it's like, "Is that allowed?"
yeah.
We're not used to this type of rhetoric or behavior, and it didn't all come out at once
Mm-mm.
either.
It was like slipped
It
in.
was slipped in. So we're going to talk about that. You've described a significant transformation at Lake Point after Josh became lead pastor in 2019, including more top down centralized leadership and a shift toward a
Mm.
quote unquote coarse, arrogant culture. What specific changes did you observe in day to day church life, decision making, or how members and leaders interacted?
Um, um, yeah, I think it was like a slow trickle away
Mhm.
from everything we thought was powerful and important in ministry. Steve had greenlighted all of these ministries. They were all flourishing, and it was like whatever your hurt was, or whatever your past was, whatever you were struggling with, you were bound to find a plug in a group that was discussing that and was looking at it through a biblical lens. And there was healing and transformation. But for me, my focus at that time, so we served and reengaged for a long time. And then I took a break and I did like bookstore, always did VBS when the girls were little. We had started a life group and I was leading in women's.
Mhm.
And I will never forget, first of all, I didn't even know women's our section of it was like the fastest growing ministry in the church at a point of time. That was not celebrated. It was just kind of told me to me at a meeting. But after our events, we would always follow up with resources and invitations to the next event. And I will never forget, we had our second annual mission project where at that at that event, 1,000 women came
Mm.
and received 10 free items. And so over months, women had donated all their best extras. We had sorted it, organized it, and set up a beautiful free store in the pier. It was huge. And we always say, "Hey, thank you for coming. We want to invite you to the next thing." And so I sent in my rough draft email and I got sent back. They're like, "This is what we're going to send." And it says, "Hope you enjoyed the clothes. See you this weekend at service."
Mhm.
And I was shocked. Every single leadership meeting we had, every single volunteer meeting we had, we always started out by saying, "This isn't about clothes.
Mm.
This is about meeting tangible needs, yes, but this is about showing the love of Christ. This is about abundance. This is about welcoming people into the church however they come." And the stories we heard come out of that were incredible. And it was never like, you know, "Thank you for the clothes." It was like, "Thank you for the clothes that got me this job. Thank you for the
Mm.
wedding dress so I could get married before my husband was deployed." Like, so saying, "Hope you enjoyed the clothes, see you at Saturday or Sunday service," it was like, wow, this is new.
Mhm.
So So are we even gonna be around? It was just odd.
Yeah. Well, and you've mentioned the elimination or downsizing of women's ministries
Mhm.
while the church promoted men's events like non-alcoholic tailgating with sports on big screens. Yeah, and we're laughing because we'll definitely unpack that.
True.
So, can you walk us through what happened with
Okay.
women's programming and how that affected female attendees,
And
especially newcomers, actually?
yes,
Yeah.
and that was the thing too, is we just wanted women who maybe their husbands weren't Christians or they were going through something specific and needed community.
Mm.
Women making friends can be really hard, as with men, but that was my focus. Now, I think anyone who has left Lake Point in the past few years can come and tell their story from their perspective. Mine was just women's.
Mm.
But over time, women to women mentoring was leaving, divorce ministry was gone. And even other things like the cafe.
Mm.
You would go by a cafe and there was a little sign that all the proceeds go to
Yep.
missions, and all of a sudden the sign was gone. People who had gone to the same, Cuba or wherever, Haiti, they had their money tagged in missions, like,
Mhm.
"This is where we're going." And they got a phone call and said, "Hey, you can't tag the money that you've raised for your life group for this mission trip anymore. It's going to be pooled.
Mm.
You have 30 or 60 days to pull it out." So it was all of these ministries. I mean, there used to be a jobs ministry,
Mhm.
where they would meet and help people find employment. That disappeared, and it was just like, why would you eliminate these? Like, what are you going to do?
That's a great question. What are we going to do? And we kept just getting the runaround. And I know that like emails were sent out. We did not receive any response other than
Mm,
basically kind of like a trust your pastor type thing. And like we get that to a certain degree, but we wanted to know where the women's ministry went. My wife was in the mentor. What is
women
it?
to women
Yes,
mentoring,
yes,
yeah,
yes. Women to women mentoring. She loved it. She was on the prayer team, and that is still there from my understanding. But at the
good.
same time, the women's events, it almost seemed like it culminated to like one event. Uh,
Oh, yeah, that
if
was the
gathering was part of the if
yeah,
gathering was huge, and that got taken away. But what's interesting about this, Amanda, is that we were under the impression by Josh that women's ministry was going to take off even further because
mhm,
that was Jana Howerton's big ministry.
that's what
And
we hoped too.
what did we find out?
I think that's one of the things, that's such a clear instance of bait and switch is, when women's ministry was, the unveiled quarterly women's events were canceled, when we came back from, COVID, we were like, "Okay, well, we support whatever Jana's gonna do or whatever the
Mhm,
church is gonna do." Like, we were excited about what's next. And they said, "Okay, well, we're gonna do one women's event and one mom event each year." They stopped doing that in
yeah.
2022, I believe. So it's just like they dangle the carrot and then they pull it away and they're like, "What carrot?"
Mhm. Yeah, that was definitely heartbreaking, especially because we were still trying to trust that, okay, any minute now, Jana is going to unveil this, right?
Mhm.
And what people may not know with, Lake Point is that Lydia Stroop was monumental in women's ministry, right? Like the Home
Home
Point,
point.
yeah, excuse me, not women's ministry, but Home Point, and that was another ministry that I don't know any, I don't
Mhm.
remember seeing anything come of that. It got taken away. Of course, if I'm wrong, please let me know I'm wrong.
No,
I would
no,
love to
you're
be
right.
wrong. Oh, okay, good, good. Well, not good, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, and that is a great point, and I'm sure, can touch on this again, but, um, so Lydia Stroop Randall, Lydia is Pastor Steve's
Oh,
daughter.
yes, Randall.
She was an employee at Lake Point for almost 30 years, ran Home Point. It was a nationally recognized, utilized ministry of all these resources,
Mhm,
like how to talk to your kids about this or great activity for Father's Day, just whole wall. And they would have huge initiatives
mhm.
every holiday. They were always giving out free resources. It was just something, it was part of the culture. And did anybody notice that got eliminated and
Mm.
she's not there anymore and the whole team's not there? So that's the kind of thing when it's all smoke and mirrors and trickery and things are moving fast and things are moving around, do you notice who's missing? And
Mm.
do we reach out to them and say, "Hey, you served the church for 30 years and your dad was the senior pastor for 40. How are you? What happened?"
Heard nothing.
There was no announcement. Yeah.
No. And keep in mind, like, we're still waiting on Jana to unveil whatever it was going to be, and what we got in return, I feel like, were the big screen TVs or the projection TVs outside. Okay, and what this was intended to be, from my recollection, is that Saturday night services were intended to be kinda like a break for moms, is what it was pitched as, meaning that, hamburgers and hot dogs were gonna be grilled and provided at for a cost, and that on big screen projection TVs out in front on a turf, really nice, like, golf green turf, community area.
Expensive.
Yeah, very, very, very expensive. That there was the games were on, right? Like, whatever game, MLB or NBA or NFL. But while these games were on, the commercials and the ads were part of it as well. And if anybody has seen any amount of TV, the ads these days are definitely not for uh, the church community. And this was also, I want to touch on this. I remember that there for a while, life groups were really plugged and pushed towards the end of sermons. Hey, be sure and check out a life group, find out a life group, find out a life group, life group, life group, to get your hot dogs, get your hamburgers, get your entertainment, right? And so we really started to notice a complete shift. And one of the main shifts that we saw was how Josh Howerton would speak during his sermons, some behaviors and some rhetoric that was just definitely not approved by any elders, let alone the congregation. We never wanted to hear what he was saying in regards to what we're about to discuss. Let's talk about the joke. Howerton apologized for the joke, but the apology was accused of being plagiarized. So we're going to dangle that for you a little bit, and let's tell the story behind that.
And for me personally, this hit me wrong so many ways. Now, we had already left. The tailgating was the last straw. Um, the 50 Shades of Grey
Mhm.
joke at Christmas service when all the children are present was for me and my girls like, what did he just say? And then the dark Easter imagery that was advertising Easter came out in February, and it was like a dark mirror
Mhm.
with dark imagery, and then it was upside down and dark and staticky and odd music. There was a whole story about that where I was accused of doctoring
Mhm.
a screenshot to make it look like they made the post when that's another whole thing. But it
Mhm.
was just like, what is this rising darkness? Like I sense this, and I have never sensed this in our church.
Mhm.
The tailgating, when that happened, as a life group leader, I mean, I'm sure you know this, we had to get everything we watched approved. We couldn't watch like secular TV anywhere in the
Yeah.
church. So having ESPN live streamed with not modestly dressed ladies
Mhm.
and coaches who drop colorful words,
Yeah.
although my words aren't colorful on my social media, but that kind of stuff. It was just like, what is happening? How is that holiness? How is putting tailgating and gambling and alcohol culture,
Mhm.
no alcohol provided, in front of the building that has regeneration? How does that not fly in the face of recovery? Um, but for me, it was like, I can't when he stood on those 2 ladders that weekend that they launched
Mhm.
tailgate.
Oh, I remember
I'm
that.
sorry, I'm going back
No,
to
no,
these.
this is great.
But he stood on those 2 ladders, Josh Howerton did, which there were about 3 or 4 plagiarized sermons in that one sermon I wasn't aware of, but, people much older and wiser, and been at Lake Point longer than me pointed that out. And he said, "You cannot climb the ladder of faith and obedience to God and climb the ladder of the world."
Mhm.
On the weekend, they launched tailgating.
Yeah.
So the other aspect of that is that flew in the face of women. All those years we were doing women's ministry, our entire budget for the year was about 24 or $2,600 for 4 events, speaker, food, everything included. And the men's events, man church was in the auditorium, and they, had men donate meat, and they cooked, and there was chips and drinks. And of course, there's a giant donation bucket, and the men are like, hey, hey, hey. And the women are like, well, I had to pay for a babysitter, and I didn't eat because I had to, and so it's like, we're not getting into it. So when they eliminated women's ministry, but then they only resurrect man church with the hot dogs and the ESPN.
Yeah, the tailgating. Yeah.
So I emailed Josh, and I said, okay. And now my husband and Josh were friendly. Josh and I were friendly. I had defended him in big ways on Twitter. There were about 3 or 4 women who called him out for being friends with Andy Wood, who at the time had platformed Mark Driscoll, post him being pushed out of his church by 40 elders. And they said, hey, Andy Wood is your friend. You're pictured here with them. Do you approve of him platforming Mark Driscoll? And so that was the conversation on Twitter. He got uncomfortable and blocked them. And they were like, wow, that was misogynistic. And I thought, well, I'm a woman in his church. I don't see that he's misogynistic. So defended him on Twitter in a big way. The tailgating, he got a long email from me.
Yeah.
And I said, help me understand why having ESPN streamed all day on Saturday helps people live a holier life. And help me, please tell me what resources are coming for the women in this way. And he said, this is for women. This is for the moms.
Yeah.
So you can have a hot dog cheap dinner before you come in.
And
So
he said he consulted several moms, which we never knew.
he got a
who
bunch
these
of
people
feedback.
were. Yeah.
So then the marriage night happened. So we'd already decided to leave. Now, my past, I have stories where I, found myself, put myself as a young, naive, non-Christian in positions where consent and those things, there was some definite damage and trauma. And, my husband and I have turned all of it over to the Lord, and he's healed so much. And so when I saw on Sheila Gregoire's podcast that he had said what he said, he said, he didn't say, hey, I heard a funny joke the other day. He said, hey, I heard this advice is a gold nugget of advice from a mentor. And then he tells the joke that, women have been dreaming of their wedding night their whole lives. And so men, wear what she tells you to wear, stand where she says to, and do what she tells you to do on her wedding day, because she's been dreaming about the deal. And then he says, oh, y'all think that was funny? Wait till you hear this part. Ladies, your husband's been dreaming about the wedding night his whole life. So stand where he tells you to stand, wear what he tells you to wear, and do what he tells you to do. And that flew in the face of so many things. So I've been writing about body image and faith since 2018, and how we can bring our bodies into wholeness again. But he literally pulled something from my grave that Jesus had redeemed and restored in me, and given Phil and I like so much healing and closeness with that wouldn't have happened without Jesus. And he pulled some dead thing out of the grave and said, haha, isn't this funny and wonderful? And I'm gonna bring it up in front of all the children of the church as a prescription on the wedding night that you get married.
That's a holy matrimony. That's literally what it's described as. And it's being joked as though it was a, it gave the image of pornography.
Yeah. Blow up doll stuff.
Well, yeah, it was just, it was not good. And there was a ripple effect. There were multiple people that that joke did not sit well with, and just an extreme flashpoint. You and others have noted that it wasn't the first time either. What was the reaction like inside the church versus online? And how did the church handle the feedback they got from that?
Well, like I said, we had left. But I posted about it immediately. I mean, I'm raising 2 teenage girls in our community. They had heard even middle schoolers in a public school say, does Josh Howerton not know about consent? Ew, I can't believe he said that. Like, how is TikTok raising these boys to know more about respecting the dignity of your wife on her wedding night than the senior pastor of a megachurch? So outside of the church, absolute uproar, embarrassment, disgust. And like, this is exactly why people leave the church. This is exactly why people turn to other things, is because of people like this in the pulpit who say these horrific, gross locker room stuff. Like, the disciples in the upper room we're not talking like this. The locker room and upper room don't exist the same spirit, word, any of that. So it was horrific. But they didn't know he'd already said it before.
Yes. Well, and then he later apologized for the joke, but the apology was accused of being plagiarized, similar to to one by another pastor, actually, and that pastor is Joby Martin,
Mhm.
right? And you've commented on patterns of plagiarism in sermons as well. What did you observe or hear internally about sermon preparation, originality, and accountability during the time that you were there, and then what you maybe noticed afterwards?
It was weird. So when he first came, every sermon felt so spot on. Now, there were some things that people were like, does he lean left politically? Like, did I
Hmm.
hear that? He's talking about racial reconciliation,
Yep.
immigrants, all these things. And that was the kind of stuff my husband was like, does he not know where he just walked into?
Hmm.
But it was more watching him change. And I guess he thought maybe that the audience isn't well read,
Yeah.
but there are very, very astute Christian teachers and theologians and people who've been to seminary in the audience who have read, they're very well read.
Hmm.
And so he would start saying things. I'm like, I think I've heard that somewhere, but he did not quote that person just now.
Hmm.
And then a few minutes later, I'm like, oh no, I've definitely heard that somewhere else. And it was just like, wait, I shook his hand not a few months ago after the service and said, how do you do that? How do you preach like that? And he said, oh, it's just the Holy Spirit. It's just the Holy
Oh
Spirit.
yeah, that's a
And I
good
thought,
answer. Yeah.
wait, this isn't right.
Yeah. Well, and I remember, I guess that had come up. Now, forgive me, I don't know the exact time of it, but I do remember him kind of giving an answer as far as being called out for plagiarism, as far as pastors talk to other pastors
Mhm, mhm.
and notes are compared, and we use each other's sermons for our own or in addition to our own. So that was his apology for that, or explanation for that rather. But his apology, because he had to
Mm,
apologize for the marriage night joke.
yeah.
That was plagiarized as well.
His, he, so we're going to talk about the narcissistic system later
Mhm,
and how
yes.
it damages the church. But this is just one example. So if you're going to use a pastor's sermon, great. But understand that you are being compensated, hired and compensated to preach and teach the word, which
Mhm,
means you wrestle with it. You have, probably been to seminary. So if you're borrowing someone else's hard fought teaching,
mhm,
um, gosh, wouldn't you respect that and just say, hey, I heard this from so and so? But if he did that every sermon, then there would be a lot of people he's crediting, right? So
mhm.
that's just my guess from based on what I heard. But the first time it was exposed, it was Andy Stanley, which don't think they were friends. So
Yeah.
for him to say, and he also tried to justify it on his blog, saying, "Well, if it's not for educational purposes or if it's not for monetary gain, are you kidding?
Mhm.
If you preach a good sermon, you're going to get more money to your church, which goes in your pocket.
Yeah.
And this isn't educational because everybody else goes to seminary school, and there's a code of ethics in seminary school that you are
Mhm.
not to steal other people's words. Like, how can you twist that? You can't twist plagiarism. You
Mm-mm.
can't.
Not at all. Well, and this wasn't the only controversy either. That was
Yeah.
this is where we kinda saw a pattern of controversy, with this marriage night joke and just some of the other rhetoric that he was displaying, but there was a specific controversy around the church allegedly urging members to manipulate a traffic study for a new stoplight by driving through an intersection repeatedly. You've spoken about this as an example of dishonesty. What was the internal response, and how did leadership address or not address concerns from the members?
Well,
But yeah, let's tell them like what the
so
study was.
because I had spoken out in such a loud way, and if you are not from Lake Point and you're just hearing this because this may be something you're experiencing in your church, let the reader understand.
Yeah.
Rockwall County is the smallest county in Texas, and Lake Point is, I believe, the sixth largest church associated with the SBC. I don't think they're SBC anymore, in the US. So Lake Point, its members, its staff, their hands are in everything, schools, uh, businesses. Like, no one wants to say a word of negativity about Lake Point because it's
Mhm.
bad for business. So I had already burst that bubble and became the most hated woman in Rockwall by speaking out. And so when the traffic study happened, I was not afraid to email the city immediately because people were sending me stuff all the time. So someone sent me the sign up genius that went out to all the like group leaders at Rockwall campus. Hey, we need a stoplight. The city has agreed to do this study. So everybody signed up for a time slot. And I think it was like 10 laps.
Mhm.
You're going to run 10 laps in 15 minutes. And someone calculated, like, if everyone had filled those, which they were filling up immediately by upper staff, lower staff, campus pastors, lower staff, like volunteers, um, that was not a natural traffic pattern.
No, not at all.
And my husband is now a 28-year battalion fire chief, but he's a city worker. So that flew in the face of him. Like, you're
Mhm.
defrauding the city. So even if you say, oh, well, we're going to pay the stoplight, the fact that you are creating a fake need for it,
Mm.
how did your top leaders down? No one had any conviction, like, hey, maybe we shouldn't sign up on the Sign Up Genius.
Yeah.
So I emailed the Sign Up Genius to the city immediately, and they were like, I got a response immediately. And then the church took the Sign Up Genius down immediately. So I'm glad I took screenshots because they
Yeah.
tried to lie about that stuff. And then Tim Smith ended up offering an apology. Now, at both Chris Berkeley, he posted on Facebook, and then Tim Smith, in their apologies, they said a few things that weren't exactly true.
Mhm.
But they did offer an apology and blamed it on one overzealous employee. I'm like,
Yeah, I remember
there were
that.
lots of names on that Sign Up Genius. Nice try.
Well, and just the fact that it was like an activity for life groups. It was like, okay, we're
Yeah.
going to give you something like
This is our project.
a supplemental project here. Do this for us. And that's what I couldn't get away from. Is like, how in the world could they justify this as being honest? And
You can't.
you can't. I mean, at all. Hence why it was taken down and backpedaled on by Tim Smith and Berkeley. Yeah. So we're getting into kind of some of the nitty gritty stuff here, and I do want to acknowledge something. We're obviously going to be all over the place because we're trying to fit in so many different accounts of experiences that were had by multiple people. So I'm going to go ahead and plug my email address. It's info@zachmoloch.com. I'll post it in the show notes. You are going to have questions. You are going to have comments. You are going to have some not so nice comments, and that is okay.
Yeah.
We really want the opportunity to be able to answer these questions, each and every question, not just the general response. We want to answer each and every question that you send our way. Some of it's going to be in response to, excuse me. Some of the responses will come from when I post the podcast on YouTube and Facebook and all that. I'm not turning the comments off. We welcome those. And again, we want to do this to be able to reconcile,
Yeah.
to those that have experienced the hurt and deceit by Josh Howerton and his leadership. So, having said that, I want to go straight into some of these spiritual abuse patterns we've seen. You publicly shared receiving hundreds of accounts of spiritual abuse, vulgar sermons, and corruption from current and former staff and attendees. Without naming individuals who wish to stay private, what patterns emerge from those stories, and why did you decide to amplify some of them?
Oh, man. I think moment one, he just disrespected his wife, Jana, from the stage. The first time she came up, and we all remember this, it was the first time I'd seen a woman
Yeah.
in the pulpit on that stage. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I hadn't seen one. And she gave a very emotional testimony about their journey with infertility.
Mhm.
And he interrupted it immediately. He's like, hey, just so you know, and let everyone know the problem wasn't that you weren't attracted to your husband, right? And how disrespectful. I mean, we had become a church of testimonies. That was so powerful, these transformative. And he just cut her off to
Mhm.
talk about sex.
Yep.
Shocker, shocker, shocker. So that was just a lot of people left immediately.
Yes.
And then the people who stayed, there's this tension in these relationships. I saw this, I left. Why are you staying?
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, there's a lot of good. And so that has become the divisive thing in our city. And I can't speak for all the campuses. I can only speak for Rockwall, but there are several campuses. And so then it became, you're either going to support Josh and his deception or his sexual humor, his vulgarity,
Mhm.
or you're going to say no and leave. And then these people can't be friends, because what we found out with Lakepoint leadership is they demand full
Mhm.
submission to their schemes. So I think it was just a general disrespect of women over and over and over again.
Mhm.
Now, that was what I saw. Um, if I had gone to seminary, I would have been alerted so many times of the poor theology. And over and over again. And people who've been in church, 40 years we're seeing, oh, I heard that in
Hmm.
1997 and whatever, so everybody saw different things. It was just, there was no stopping it.
Hmm.
And then we get to the shady little girls in mini
Yes. Yeah.
skirts. Is it okay if I talk
Oh,
about it?
please.
Okay.
Yes. This is, yeah.
So even after all that, um, he proceeds to give a sermon specifically to the men of Lake Point, which
Hmm.
affects our whole city, right?
Yeah.
Like everyone's being raised up. They have the biggest numbers ever. And he says, um, the book of Ephesians tells us, men, that if we encounter evil, we run into Satan himself, that we are to bow up and stand firm and fight.
Hmm.
The book of Ephesians also says to flee from sexual immorality. So if you, and he said earlier, if you go out into the parking lot, men, and you run into Satan himself with the horns and the tail,
Yeah.
Satan's not a cartoon character.
Yeah.
Sorry you didn't learn that in the seminary you went to. But we all know that because we've been raised under Pastor Steve. And then he says, um, you're to flee sexual immorality. So men, if you walk out of this church and you run into a shady little girl in a mini skirt in the parking lot,
Mm.
flee, run,
Run,
you
Forrest,
don't,
run.
yeah,
Is actually
yeah,
what he said.
you don't have the power to
Mhm.
resist that. And huh?
Yeah.
You wrote this, you supposedly rehearsed it, but actually, I
Hmm.
think it's been exposed that you don't rehearse. And then you delivered it 3 or 4 times. I don't know if there were 4 services, you think, to various ages. So you literally demonize little girls, saying
Yeah.
that if they wear a miniskirt, they're shady and they hold more power than Satan himself. How do you not know that Satan's power is limited and that little girls don't hold more power, more evil than Satan himself? Like how? And how can you demonize the very girls the men in our church are supposed to be covering in prayer and discipling and raising up in the faith? What?
Hmm.
We got no apology for that. Not even a
Not,
borrowed
yeah.
apology. Not even Joby Martin had one in his pocket ready for that. So the biggest thing that happened with that is there's no apology. And he didn't skip a beat. He kept
Mhm.
preaching, he kept teaching, he kept showing up on the live. And it
Well,
was
we were
like,
accused of not being able to take a joke, is what.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
It was.
because not having a sexual, vulgar, or a demonizing sense of humor, that's a fruit of the Spirit. That's part of our sanctification. I forgot. I missed that part. Let me go find it. It's not in there.
Right. Well, let's talk about some of the backlash too. And we're gonna be all over the place. So please feel free and interject with the stories that you have here. But you've mentioned facing backlash for speaking out, including from staff
Mm,
or members themselves. What was that like for you and your family, and how did it factor into your
mm,
decision to leave after
bless.
so many years of that investment?
Yeah. I didn't really ask my children to speak out. It definitely ran this all by Phil, and he doesn't have the things in his past that I did. That
Mhm.
so maybe he didn't get as fired up, and but fully supported me.
Good.
And I mean, isn't this what we're called to do? Stand up for the truth. But it was very interesting because the first time I commented, I didn't know this for a few months, but anyone who liked or commented on that was like, yeah, that dark imagery for Easter is weird.
Mhm.
They were pulled aside by staff, cornered, and threatened. Hey, Amanda is out of line with Lake Point. That she's
Mhm.
not aligned with Lake Point. And if you want to keep serving here, you are not allowed to support her. If you do, you can step down and leave.
Yep.
And it was just a very threatening tone. Like that is not at all what Lake Point used to be.
Mhm.
So I didn't find out about that later, but I mean, it took a long time to find out how bad things were.
Well, they painted you out to be so.
I was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, they painted you out to be crazy, and I got to be really, really honest. And I don't even know if this has actually come up in our conversations, but we were one of the ones that thought you were crazy.
That's okay.
Also, yeah, and I I'm to say that now.
Everyone says
Yeah,
that.
we've developed a relationship, but at first it was like I went back and forth. At first it was like, oh, she's got some really cool opinions. Let's follow her to see what she says. And then I
Mm,
was on the bandwagon of like anti Amanda. I was like, you know what, we can't do this. Like she's trying to divide all the things that you've
mm.
been accused of. I'll be honest, we were some. So please, I'm doing this live. Please, accept my apology. I'm
Listen,
very, very sorry for that.
listen.
But it's all
It's fine.
come to light, and like we, like so many other people, are coming to you saying, "Hey, we see this now.
Yeah.
What do we do? Can you help us?" So you became a voice for the
Yeah.
voice for so many voiceless, and some of us have just become really, really scared to speak up
Mm,
because of the backlash
mhm.
that we've seen you receive. So I just want to let you know that you're handling it with such grace. And it's clear that you've been anointed by God Himself to be able to bring this stuff to the light of people to be able to expose corruption. And I can't thank you enough, like personally. And it's my honor to be able to sit here with you to bring these things to light. And
It's very
again,
kind.
to be able to help others.
Yeah.
Right.
And I do want to touch on that for a second because when all these stories were coming, because I said things out loud,
Mm.
people were just, I mean, I was on the phone. My phone ran hot, like physically hot for
Yeah.
months. And Phil was like, "You okay in there?" But what he always told me was, "Amanda, they don't control us.
Mm.
They can't hurt us." Now, they tried.
Yes,
I have
they
been
did.
stalked, I've been harassed, I have been threatened. There's been all kinds of weird stuff on my social media, which I found out later was definitely staff. Um, come on, I mean,
Yeah.
petty backlash, like ridiculous stuff. But the strength of my husband and his boldness and his confidence, if you've met him, uh, no one's gonna mess with Phil.
Yeah.
The irony is that everyone said I was crazy. Well, then why was I allowed to serve in all these capacities for all these years?
Yeah.
I wrote Lake Point Stories for a year as a contract writer. I mean, I served in BBS. Like, why'd you let a crazy person run all over the church for 10 years?
Mhm.
Did I suddenly get crazy? Like, it was, but I didn't really know the extent of that. But yes, actually, the truth of it is that I've had a lot of issues with people in my life very close to me that have struggled with mental illness.
Mhm.
And they leverage that, the dirty thing they knew about me that they thought was
Mm.
dirty. And they said, "Hey, she's crazy, just like these people in her life."
Oh, that's not fair.
It's,
Yeah.
it's not Christ like.
Mhm.
When did Jesus ever say, "Ooh, wow, your brain's a little broken. Get out of here"?
That's true.
What?
Yeah.
Like, what? I
Yeah.
just keep saying that. What?
Well, and speaking of mental health, I'll just jump straight to it. I'm sure we're going to get to it at some point. But with it being Mother's Day weekend, I remember a certain sermon last Mother's Day that was given by, I knew I was going to forget her name, but she's with
Pamela Baltazar.
Pamela Baltazar. She gave the sermon for Mother's Day.
Yeah.
Well, we'll put some resources in the show notes about this particular sermon, but it was, for one, clearly not written by her.
Hmm.
I mean, it was clearly, now, of course, I don't have factual evidence of that, but you can,
It was fed.
it was fed. You could definitely tell that if you've heard any of her talks. But one part that really stuck out with me, one of many, many parts that stuck out, but this one in particular, was the fact that she referred to mental health as infiltrating Lake Point.
Really mean? Let's talk about this. She says, what do these words really mean? Let's define them. And then doesn't really define any of them, not scripturally nor psychologically.
Season in our lives, we're like, oh, my depression. Clinical depression is something very serious. You're just a little sad. Or if you're like organized.
When someone tells you they are struggling and they think they're depressed, you do not tell them, no, you're just a little sad, because you are not them. And that's why people, including pastors, have unalived themselves. They have lost their future. Why? Because when they tried to reach out for help, people said, you're not depressed, you're just a little sad. Any pastor who says crap like that from the pulpit should never be in another pulpit, because whether you meant it or not, that is wildly ignorant, and it is dangerous. If one person loses their life because you said something like that, you don't ever need to be in the pulpit again. And that's the danger that we run. Oh, you say you're depressed. No, you're a little sad. Guys, that is a massive red flag.
And like things in a certain
Infiltrating Lake Point,
Hmm.
and accused it of being a trend,
Hmm.
and how you may be, depression is this, anxiety is that, OCD is this. She said that, we give these big words to something that is so small, essentially. And she was saying, as far as like depression, she compared it with, well, it's just a bad day.
Hmm.
And you may be experiencing church hurt. Well, you are the church, so you're responsible for this.
Oh, I remember that.
The way that she just ripped mental health was extremely shocking. Not just to me and others, but what was strange is that Josh Howerton himself, a couple of years prior, maybe even
2021.
2021, he had some experiences that he was very open about and made himself extremely relatable because of what coronavirus did to mental health. It it took people to a dark place.
Yeah.
There was a lot of people who were isolated. We all know what happened. We all lived that. But mental health was a pandemic itself. You know, it was just it was running rampant, and people were not able to get the help that they so desperately needed.
Yeah.
Well, he took an opportunity to make himself relatable. Now, and I'm sure that what he was speaking was true. I really do believe
Mm.
that, but it's just the way he exploited it.
Yeah.
And he was at first taking these little things out of his pocket and putting them in his mouth, and he created the curiosity. He created this narrative of like, what's he doing? You
Mhm.
know, what's he
Why
doing?
is he doing that?
Why is he doing that? But he still spoke well. He looked well, and Josh Howerton is a great speaker. So he just went along. We just thought, okay, cool. It's just something different he's doing. Maybe his mouth is dry. Well, but then he exposed it. He said that he had experienced something he had never experienced before. When he got out of bed one morning, he said that basically it was just this crushing, overwhelming feeling, and he was explaining a panic attack. And he admitted to that. He admitted to dealing with the anxiety and seeking help for that. So he made himself, again, relatable to all those going through mental health issues during coronavirus and post COVID. He made himself one of them,
Yeah.
right? So it was just, it was odd to hear her essentially bash mental health or water it down, minimize it, whatever you want to say about it. But when for one, we have one of the biggest counseling departments in any church I have ever heard of.
Yeah.
And it's
Should
phenomenal.
have that out
And
there.
I'm going to shout out to Brent Tice. He runs the counseling program right now. He is one of the key and instrumental people in our lives that help save our marriage, Amanda. You know, so like this, the counseling center and mental health, it just holds near and dear to our heart because Lake Point was part of helping us. And again, coming back to her essentially bashing mental health, I just don't see how she could do, and I don't see how Pastor Josh could allow that to happen, having experienced a mental health crisis himself. So
Yeah.
is she talking to him too? Like, oh, you're just having a bad day?
No, I don't think anyone's going to correct
Right.
Josh.
Exactly. So, and speaking of that, hold on to that as far as correcting Josh, we'll get to that too. But I was just appalled at that.
Yeah.
And any of the mothers, matter of fact, anybody who heard that sermon, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that you had to experience that. I'm sorry if it was your first visit and that's what you were exposed to. I'm sorry that if you took your mother to
Yeah.
church that day, to breakfast, you know, to all the things, and Lake Point was a part of that. I'm so sorry that you were not honored in the manner you should have been honored. You know, I wish I could do something about that, but that's exactly what we're doing now. And I want to ask, and I'm sorry, I'm going on a tangent here, but
No, it's good. It's important.
yeah,
No one
it
else is
is,
speaking into
it is
this. So
important.
thank you, Zach.
And as far as mental health, guys, don't ever let anybody tell you that what you're experiencing is not what you're experiencing. I'm sorry. There, you know, our emotions, yes, they're up and down. And can they be trusted? I don't think so. But can we use our emotions to
Yeah.
make decisions, informed decisions? Yes and no. But go ahead. You're getting ready.
Well, I loved Lisa Turker said a quote years ago that said, our feelings can be indicators, but we can't let them be
Indicators.
dictators.
Yes.
Simple, done. Like
Yeah.
Jesus didn't lead an emotionless ministry. So
No, he didn't. And you know, I'm actually working on a series myself as far as Jesus and mental health. Mental health is all through the Bible.
yeah, it's our brain.
It's Jesus himself sweat blood. Don't know any. I've never come across anybody who's experienced that much anxiety or despair. And this man showed us what it could be like.
Yeah.
He lived it, and he asked his own father, knowing what he was going to have to do. He asked, "If there's any other way, please let that be. But let your will be done."
True.
Sweating blood, probably in tears, in
Definitely.
despair and pain that a lot of us have experienced to where we just don't know what to do, but we just want it to end. And he experienced that. David experienced despair and anxiety and depression. Elijah experienced anxiety, despair, depression. There were all these people in the Bible that experienced exactly what me and a lot of others go through.
Yep.
And have
And
it
what Josh went through.
and what Josh went through, and have it completely just run over I mean, that's essentially what this woman did, was just run over a lot of people who have clinical depression, who have clinical generalized anxiety, who have treatment resistant disorder, who have PTSD, who have OCD, who have all these different things that they are navigating. And then to have someone get up on a stage in front of thousands and potentially millions of people and say that what you're experiencing is not what you're experiencing. You're just having a bad day. I hope you never,
Evil.
ever come in contact with somebody who does that. But if somebody is approaching you and say, hey, what you're dealing with is not what you're dealing with, then just turn from them and go to somebody who will
Yes.
make you feel heard, seen, and loved, because none of you are alone in that. None of you are alone
Yeah.
in having feelings that are real.
Yeah.
Like you said, they can be indicators, but they can't be dictators. But they should not be downplayed.
Well, our brain kind of controls everything. So if you're going to denigrate mental health, do you have a problem with vitamins? Because we take vitamins to keep our brains,
Mm.
vitality and memory. And like, are you against walking? Walking
Yeah.
is good for our mental health. And I love that Jesus walked with the disciples. I mean, if you think about like trauma or shock, right? They're seeing miracle upon miracle, all these things they can't explain.
Mhm.
And the way they're processing it in between cities is walking.
Mhm.
If you've ever walked long distances or walked physically with Christ and really, I mean, that is healing your brain and things that are broken. We live in a broken world. We
Mhm.
should have no shame that part of our bodies are broken. And what does it say about the body of Christ? We are all different parts belonging to one body. And when one part suffers, the whole body suffers. I never saw Jesus one time in the Bible look at someone and go, oh, go heal.
Or
Go
you're
heal
just
someone.
having a bad day.
Oh, that's just a bad day.
Yeah.
You're overreacting.
Mhm.
When did he ever say, oh, you're overreacting? Now, he may convict people of like, okay, you're thinking about this too much. Focus on this,
Sure.
which we need redirection. But to say mental health, and I want to bring her up. So Rebecca Carroll is someone I've um, just always looked up to. She, is a Dallas Theological Seminary grad teacher, Bible teacher, and she published this amazing article in Fathom years ago that talked about why do we segment off mental health as this like stigmatized,
Mhm.
scary, weird thing when it's part of our physical body. It's physical health. Like it's not this weird, scary. I mean, there's so many things tied to that. And I love her for saying that. Why isn't that preached in our church?
Yeah.
But do not put our first responders up on the stage and pray for them and then shame people with mental health struggles. Do you not know what police officers and firefighters and our military goes through? Are you
Mhm.
kidding me? Do you not know what our teachers go through? Like everyone is mental health struggles come for us all.
Mhm.
Are you kidding?
Well, and then when, we emailed or we sent an Instagram message, what we got in response was we got directed to the podcast, by the way.
Oh,
Like we didn't there was nothing. Yeah, take a drink before we get onto this subject. But there was no attempt to say, "Hey, we see you. Let's talk about this." It wasn't that at all. It's like, "Hey,
mm.
we basically we hear you whining. Go to the podcast."
Oh, they
And
hate the
yeah,
whining.
yeah. And thanks for letting me kind of go off on that. But that's
Listen,
just
this is why we need
yeah,
to hear from you because no one's willing to say this, and you're a mental health advocate. But like, think of all the men sitting in the pews, and the movie seat chairs that
yeah,
like struggle with this secretly and battle it. Like, women were allowed to be more open about this, and he's like, "Oh, even our women can't talk about it. Great,
yeah.
okay. Well, I guess I'll just throw my medication away."
No kid. All right. So moving forward, many listeners may be in churches experiencing similar red flags: celebrity pastor dynamics, or top-down control, or demeaning rhetoric, lack of accountability. What advice would you give them based on your experience? You don't have to answer that now because I know we still have a lot to unpack, so we can answer that later.
I can move quickly.
And then what signs indicate it's time to leave
Oh,
what signs indicate that it's time to leave versus stay and push for change? And we are in no hurry, by the way.
man. Okay. Well, as far as the stay and leave, push for change, that is the work of the Holy Spirit. I mean, some people are still there and have never been okay with it
Mhm.
and know they're in place for when everything falls apart because pride comes before the fall. And we are seeing pride worshiped, celebrated, encouraged
Mhm.
in really revolting ways from top leadership. But so as far as that, I can't say, but the only way I was able to stay sane through all of this,
Yeah.
contrary to opinion.
Contrary to
And
popular
really,
opinion.
not that it wasn't a struggle. I want to make this clear. I wasn't like hurt. The women's ministry disappearing, things happen. Like
Mhm.
we aren't in charge of all that. But I had a lot of experience with narcissists in my life. And I don't say that to label them or demean them. Like they have deep, deep pain, deep levels of shame that they basically construct an alternate reality and invite people into it
Yeah.
because this is what they need they think, to protect themselves. But people on the outside are like, uh, this isn't making
Yeah.
sense. And so I tried to make sense of it. So I knew how to love these people, learned a lot about it. And so when the email came back to me that the hot dogs and the burgers are for the
Oh.
women, I was like, wow, okay, we don't need to have any more conversation because that's how you think this conversation should
Mhm.
end with me? No, no,
Yeah.
no, no. So, as I'm talking to people, and I came to Christ at 30. I wasn't raised in the church. And I think
Mm.
people who are raised in the church, raised in a loving, true, authentic, God honoring church, they don't see any of this coming.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's really hard to say, what do you mean my church leadership is bad? Like that can't be possible.
Mhm.
That's the whole, and we're like, well, unfortunately it is. So I think just understanding the word narcissist too, it can be
Oh,
weaponized, just
yes.
like the good word of the Lord can be weaponized. We all have narcissistic traits, right? We can all be selfish. We can all be self-involved, prideful. I do think there can be good, healthy pride, like you take pride in your work and
Mhm.
your Bible study and all these things
Yeah.
in your health. But when it gets to the point where you can actually, the brain structure changes where
Mm.
empathy is just not possible because it's just this whole false
Yeah.
world. That's what we're talking about as a system. And when that system takes over the church, I would argue you need to take the word church off your sign because you're not a church anymore.
No, they're a club. And just to give you some context as far as what narcissism is, I pulled it up so we wouldn't, uh, butcher the definition. But narcissism is a personality trait, excuse me, characterized by a long-term pattern of excessive self-centeredness, a deep need for admiration, and a lack of empathy for others. Exactly what you said. It ranges from healthy self-esteem to severe pathological forms, such as narcissistic personality disorder, which involves a delusional sense of superiority. Ding, 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 ding.
And I don't mean to say that lightly. It's just like everyone who's been there a long time, like I think after Charlie Kirk died, there was a new flood of people, right?
Mhm.
They're fairly new. They have no
Yes.
idea what Lake Point used to be, and they missed a lot of the vulgarity, passed off as like, he's a great guy, he's a
Mhm.
world-class preacher. No. So I think the number one thing that really has stood out to me now that my eyes are open, and like when you said earlier, like we thought you were crazy. No judgment. Like we're all seeing this
Mhm.
in what God chooses as our timing. I trust Him, and it's all coming differently. So I knew people were going to think I was crazy, and luckily, my husband and I don't really care what people think.
Well, what was great
But
about that, though, is you didn't let anybody tell you what to feel. I
yeah, it
noticed you
wasn't
didn't.
about feelings for
Well,
me. It was
not
just like this
well,
is
not just that, but
incorrect.
as far as like you didn't let the whole, being painted as crazy like affect you. And I thought that was well, from what I could
Yeah,
see, just from how you handled it, that was so great.
I mean, yeah,
One thing I want to go back to real quick before we move on. Hope you don't mind, but
sure.
we were talking about the mental health and her preaching. I wanted to actually go back to a conversation that I had
Mm.
with a leader of the
Oh yeah,
church.
this is so
Yeah,
important.
it just needs to be said, just because it's not right. So Beverly and I had been paying very close attention to what was going on as far as like the rhetoric and some of the behaviors we were seeing, some of the responses we were seeing. And we were very unsettled is the word. It felt weird to question it. We honestly felt like we were doing something wrong by
Yeah,
questioning Josh and his leadership. So what do? We go to people who are in positions of authority to
Matthew
receive
18.
guidance because they are our shepherd,
Yeah, and
right?
yeah.
So I went to this particular pastor. His name's Ryan Sharp at the Firewall campus, and I went to him for two different things. Well, let me back up. First, I went to Taylor. I can't remember his last name, but I went to Taylor to talk about these two things. And it was about a particular individual that we were having some potential conflict with in a life group setting. It wasn't still going on in the life group, but it was outside of the life group, and we still felt that it needed to be addressed by leadership. So I presented that to Taylor, and mind you, Taylor agreed that the red flags were there for this particular individual. And what my major concern was, outside of just the issues that were not biblical in how he was behaving, but it was the fact that this particular person was on the firearms team. I don't know if that's what they're called, security team, right?
Yeah.
So he's licensed to carry a gun, and he's carrying a gun, and he has the earpiece in his ear, right? So he's doing all the things that he's supposed to be doing. He's serving. Well, this particular person was, for all intents and purposes, a pathological liar. And he was making it his agenda to meet these people of authority within the church to form exactly what we were just talking about as far as this narcissistic bubble of himself and extensions of himself. So the red flags were seen by Taylor. He talked to me about that. I'm not going to give you the name of the person because that's neither here nor there. This is actually leading up to what I'm really getting to. But it got to the point where we needed to pull in Ryan Sharp. Well, all the while there was still that lingering, hey, Beverly and I are still like contemplating leaving. What should we do? Are we wrong? And it led to Ryan Sharp, Taylor, and myself sitting down at a Starbucks right there, catty corner from the Firewheel campus. And this is my first time meeting Ryan Sharp. Shook his hand, gave him the whole bro hug, hey, I'm surprised we didn't do this sooner, all this and that. And I felt like he was genuinely going to hear me out. Well, we proceed. We're sitting there, and I go to share the story. And 5 minutes into the story, I notice that he's kind of looking around. He's looking at his watch, and I benefit of the doubt, right? Like he's a busy person. I'm not paying much attention at first, but then he wasn't listening.
No.
And he kept making these gestures, like kind of even back over his shoulder, kind of looking at the cars passing by and things like that. So I finally spoke up because, mind you, I'm talking to him about leaving something that we had been a part of for almost 25 years, on top of the issue that we saw in this particular individual on the security team. So I asked him, I said, Ryan, am I keeping you from something? Like, because it bothered me, and I wasn't probably the nicest, but I'm an assertive person. So I just asked him, like, do you need to be somewhere? Like, and he looked at me, he said, no, I'm just trying to get to the point of this.
Oh.
Well, Ryan, I need to give you context as to what we're going through. Again, we're considering leaving something we've been a part of for close to 25 years. And, there's this individual you need to be aware of. And I was telling him, through all this, like it was difficult enough to have to talk to him, but then to have to talk to him when he clearly had something else on his mind that wasn't shepherding us, I just found it extremely disrespectful and rude.
Yeah.
Well, then I brought up spiritual. My mind went blank. Help me. Spiritual abuse and spiritual warfare. Thank you. My mind just blank.
Like either one of those, they all apply.
Leave it to me to have the brain fart. So spiritual warfare, I had told him, and he looked at me perplexed, and he said, "You're not going through spiritual warfare."
Oh.
So
I feel better now.
I feel better now, right? Like he apparently knew me.
He knew everything.
And knew everything about me to the point that what I was dealing with was not spiritual warfare.
Because he listened so closely.
I was appalled at that. I said, Brian, why are you not going to give me the respect of having not only been here 20 plus years, but I worked at the Firewheel campus for close to a year back in 2017, 2018. And it's not, I'm not saying I have this clout, I need you to listen to me and do it. And nothing at all. But there's a respect of somebody who's been in a leadership role for so long and been a part of that church, you would think. He wasn't giving it to me at all. And there were a couple of, and I'm looking, by the way, you probably forgot by now that Taylor was part of this conversation.
Standing there silent?
So I thought.
Oh.
He sat there completely silent, and I kept looking at him for him to speak up, and he was just not speaking up. So at that point, I knew that there was a different agenda here today.
Mm.
And I knew what it was because of how I was treated at the very end. We got through the conversation. He was not hearing it. Brian Sharp was not hearing it. He was not giving any type of shepherdly advice, any type of wisdom whatsoever. He was accusing me or telling me, excuse me, that I was not going through spiritual warfare. But at the same
Right.
time, we want what's best for you and your family when it comes to leaving the church.
So can you please
So-
leave now?
Exactly. So I said, this particular, just so you know, this particular person on the security team, it takes him one time to mess up. And there's certain things you can't take back.
Yeah.
But be prepared to be gaslit by this individual the entire time. So what I'm trying and essentially doing is to prevent something from happening. And it may be a far-fetched idea, but the fact is that it's a possibility, especially with pathological people and narcissistic people. So I realized I wasn't getting anywhere, and I finally said, Ryan, I think that this is really telling me what I need to do here. And my wife and I are no longer going to be part of Lake Point Church. I kid you not, this is what he did. All right.
So much
That's all he
for
said.
honor, up, down, and all around, right? Top down and all
Yeah.
around. That's what the honor
Yeah.
culture they have.
He was ready from the beginning of that conversation to wipe his
done.
hands of us. And as I was leaving, I said, do me one favor. When all this that I said unfolds, send me a text.
Let's say you
Yeah.
You
just
were
say,
right.
hey, you know what? You were right.
Mhm.
And I know that may come off as, oh, Zach, you're just trying to be right about a situation. Absolutely not. I don't want to be right about that
Don't.
at all.
Mm-mm.
But what he was doing was so disrespectful. And just to know that he's potentially doing that with anybody else who comes to him for guidance, he's completely minimizing what they're experiencing.
Completely.
And it was just because, like, looking back in hindsight, is because I was not necessarily against Josh, but I was questioning Josh. And then I was questioning the leadership that would allow this particular individual to serve on a security team.
Yeah.
And did you know that, from my understanding, and this may have changed since then, but there's no psychoanalysis with the security team.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I feel safe now.
They do a background check, but there's nothing beyond the paper background check. So who knows how many people are there carrying guns on the security team.
Wild and
Yeah.
just unhinged.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
On the verge of
yeah, I mean, I hope that nothing comes of that on worst case scenario. But I wanted to mention that for the fact that the hammer, her name again?
Hispanic hammer that Josh calls her.
Yes.
Pamela Baltasar.
Yeah, Pamela. To
Or
where
Pamela.
she is telling people, oh, you're just having a bad day. It's not depression. Oh, you're just having a tough time. It's not anxiety.
Mhm.
Ryan Sharp. Oh, it's not
Not
spiritual
spiritual
warfare what
warfare.
you're going through. So I just thought that was worth mentioning, that entire story, because it was just, you go to people that you think that you can trust and that you think you could be led well by, and it just falls completely short.
Well, that's their whole job.
Mhm.
They've been hired to do that job.
Yeah.
Now, so many things you just brought up to me right now. First
Sorry,
of
I
all,
took the whole floor
please.
there from
No. This is really the meat of this whole thing, because
Yeah.
what people are experiencing who were there under Pastor Steve, which we all know is this legend, right? 40 years of leadership, and then you're villainized for saying, "Hey, this isn't right." So this is what stood out to me. First of all, you're experiencing the script. Everyone who's gone through this,
I found
they're
out.
like, "Hey, this is really hurting me. I think, should we leave?" And then this is what they hear: "We can help you end your membership right now."
Mhm.
What? It's not a church; it's a business now, and so again, they should take the church down. But the ultimate goal of a narcissist is to, in a church setting, spiritual setting, is to silence the voice of the Holy Spirit in you and replace it with theirs.
Mhm.
That's the whole goal. And so if they can do that, they can completely control you and they can get whatever they want. And so I just see that happening over and over again, where you're questioning yourself. We're questioning the still small voice of God that's raising up convictions to you that you want to sound the alarm. Be alert and of sober mind. The enemy prowls around like a lion looking to devour people. We know these things. So when we
Yeah.
see, hey, there's a lion, I think he might devour someone. Okay, here's another thing. So obviously Josh has like multiple podcasts or numerous
don't-
social media.
Yeah, lots of social
but he's
media.
not on social.
Oh, by the way, when the first couple of years he was here, he was very, very proud of the fact he was against social media, and he only spent about 20 minutes a week on social media. And if you were to hear that right now and not known Josh prior, you would be like, really? He's all over social media. He lives on social media. He loves social media.
Well, even now he claims he's not on there. Not
Oh, it's interesting.
But yeah, he actually has a pastor podcast. I think it's called Research or something. But he gave a talk on there of how to mob proof your church, which we can talk about in a minute. And he and Josh McPherson say, hey, we are not pastoring. We are not pastors.
Mm.
We are not here to pastor. We have all the other guys pastoring for us. We govern. Have you made that clear to your staff?
Hmm.
So what you're saying is all these other campus pastors, all these other ministries pastors that are looking up to you for an example are hearing a disconnect that you're just the governor and they're supposed to pastor. No, what's happening is they're copying you. And now you said this is how things are going to be. And so when you say, hey, this guy's acting like the top guy,
Yeah.
the middle guy is not going to be like, oh, we have to boot him, because the whole thing is they want to mirror each other, right? They want to create this whole system where it's like this giant wolf pack. They can devour whoever they want. And there's no evidence.
Yeah. That they wipe their hands clean of it. So there's a lot of accounts that I know we haven't gotten to, and I think we're going to get to those now. Can we talk about some of the things as far as like the NDAs,
Yeah.
the firings, or
Yeah.
the voluntary resigns? Like, let's talk about some of the things that are murky and muddy, and that people have no idea, but they need to know about that. Can we get into that?
Yeah. And I would like to preface it by saying that this is spiritual abuse. This is misuse of power and positions in a spiritual setting to intimidate and harm people. So long, faithful employees are brought into meetings. Sometimes they've had meetings like, hey, can you change this? Sometimes it's just a cold call meeting. And they're like, it's time for you to be fired. And so it's all a shock. Like, they're not used to getting pulled into a room with a manila folder, and then you can sign this. Now, a lot of us describe it generally as an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, but they're very crafty. And so they name it different things. But when lawyers look at it, they say, this is a silencing document. If you take the severance payment, and that's how it's worded, if you take the severance payment, we're buying your silence. And when there's what we heard afterward in a therapeutic setting from some people was that it was a very intimidating, shocking experience, and they signed and moved on with their life. And now they can't talk about it. And so people are like, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. No one said anything. Well, they can't. They signed an NDA until Chris and Mary Cootie. Now, what we've learned from Chris and Mary Cootie is they were offered $100,000 to be silent, and they said, absolutely not. And that changed everything, because then they were able to share that, in the crowd, we heard all kinds of things like, we'll do anything short of sin to save people for Christ, honor up, down, top down, and all around. But now we know that Josh Howerton can sit in a meeting with Mary Cootie and look down at her and say, I'm going to talk to you like a man. I've made the mistake of talking to women like children before, but I'm going to talk to you like a man. Can you handle that? And then saying, by the way, I don't usually talk to people 5 levels below me.
5 levels below. Yeah, I remember hearing that and thought, my gosh.
How could you ever be the same person on stage that preaches on meekness, humility, washing feet, and then say to your lead worship couple on the main campus, you're lowering yourself to speak to her? Shocking, disrespect of women. So thank you, Lord, for people like Chris and Mary who have paved the way for others to be like, hey, actually, and look, they're finding employment, like they have support, like people believe them. And this is how the church should be. When one part suffers, the whole body suffers. And if you look at the manipulations and the deception, it's so clear that the guys at the top aren't suffering. It's not like, oh, poor senior mega pastor with the $500,000 salary, and then probably monetizing about 5 million followers on different social media platforms with a podcast that just surpassed the New York Times in ratings. No, we're not going to feel sorry for your money and your power and your position. And the fact that you're misusing your power to abuse people like the Cooties, listen, done. How is he still? You've disqualified yourself so many times. And anyone who supports that at this point,
Can we get some of the examples with the Cooties? Or any other?
I only know like the public stuff, but looking at what they've exposed, which we all saw but could never say out loud, is it's a wolf pack. It's not just like a wolf in sheep clothing. They've let in wolves to the whole flock, and then they're posing as a shepherd when, I mean, a performer, governor,
Yeah.
wolf. You're preying on people. So this whole mob mentality and the poor megachurch pastor getting attacked by mob, it was 3 to 4 women on Twitter. I'm
Mm.
friends with all of them. The only time that people on the internet really came after him were people in his own church commenting on social media
Yeah.
about the joke, and
That's
those comments were deleted.
They
So
were.
when we go back to the narcissistic system, we saw men in the church, current members, rebuking Josh and their comments deleted. So it was a PR team.
Mhm.
Did Jesus have a PR team?
Not that I'm aware.
He didn't
Yeah.
have sin to cover up. But if there was sin, he called it out, he restored it. Like, we're not hiring people to delete cries from inside the house.
Mhm.
So there's so many instances of this, but John 10:10 tells us that the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, and Jesus come that we may have life and have it in the full. If a megachurch pastor, the senior pastor of a megachurch, multi-site, cannot offer an original, genuine apology
Mhm.
for something he has done a second time.
That's
He
what
said the
blows
same
my mind.
joke in
Yeah.
2021. He got emails. He responded to the emails. He knew exactly who he was going to hurt in
Mhm.
2024.
It floors
knew
me.
it.
Yeah, that he did this again.
And let me tell you, a personal account, someone I know was in the audience. Her husband was currently physically abusing her in the bedroom as well. And when he heard Josh say that joke, he stood up and went, "Yeah."
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So if he can't offer a genuine apology, that's part of the narcissist. That's a red flag. That is, that's a mind trick too. It's
Mhm.
like, well, I offered an apology. Is that not good enough for you?
Yeah. Well, he accuses everybody of not being able to take a joke. And
Yeah.
and there's a clip out there too, and we'll post this clip. We'll post a lot of these clips. They may not be organized, they'll be posted. To where when he was prefacing a sermon series that he was going to do on the Song of Solomon.
Oh, blessed.
It was this past summer, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So he likes to preface some of these racier type sermons as PG-11 or PG-13
Yeah.
or whatever the case.
So our 12-year-olds can hear it.
Yeah. And he's given these 3 points, but the only thing that stood out of these 3 points was, I think, the second point he made, which was if you can't handle a joke, and
Yeah.
then ... And he started not to talk about it, but it was very calculated. You know how when somebody really wants to say something, but they'll make you want it more by saying, "Oh, I better not say that." But well, I'm going to go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what he does. And he's accusing people of not being able to take or saying things like, "Well, if you can't take a joke, the sermon's not going to be for you." He was given like 3 reasons why you might hate this sermon. Right? That's really a
The
great
Song
way
of
to go.
Solomon series. Yeah.
So he says, if you can't take a joke, the sermon's not going to be for you. And, matter of fact, and he goes, well, no, I better. No, you know what? Those of you back in 2021 know what I'm talking about. But you know what? We're not going to have any of those problems this time because I got rid of all those people.
Ran them off.
I got rid of. He was proud to say that he got rid of the people that he offended by these jokes.
11 series. Number 2, you're going to hate this series if you are uncomfortable with Bible teaching about sex and intimacy. In fact, you are going to be uncomfortable with how comfortable I am talking about what the Bible says about these things, because that's what the entire book is about. You'll see this here in a second. Number 3, I learned that I need to say this in 2023. If you cannot handle a joke about sex and intimacy, you are going to hate this sermon series. Yeah, if you're around in 2023, you know what I'm talking about. But I'm really confident I don't have to worry about that because I drove all those people away, and they're at home reading the Dallas Morning News right now. That's great. So that's great, man. We're good. Y'all go do your thing. That's fine.
And what is the good shepherd? What is the passage about the good shepherd? He leaves the 99 to go for the 1. And Josh was like, I ran off a bunch of people. Now,
He was proud of that.
Oh gosh, there's so much I could say about that. I was quoted in an article for Cron that hundreds of people were leaving Lake Point.
Mm.
That was being kind.
Yeah.
And recently, someone asked him on Twitter, like, "Hey, is this you in your church? How you were running people off?" And he's like, "Oh, that reporter wished it was true. We've actually gained X amount of people." It's like,
Mm.
no. You're missing the point. All the people you ran off.
Yeah.
But like with Ryan Sharp, right? If they cut the maturity in half and it's an immature church, then that is going to offend, stand against people who are mature saying, wait, what did you just try and say to me?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. But it's that they're seeing it from the top down. Um, one of the things too is they live by these different set of rules.
Mhm.
Like he can come out and say all this stuff, but then Amanda says one thing and she's crazy.
Yeah.
She's crazy. And that was not the end of the rumors about me. I'm not gonna give them any
Yeah.
other airtime, but they're duplicitous. So this mask they cover, covering their shame, it slips sometimes,
Mhm.
and they can't help it because they want to boast about their schemes being successful, but they want to look holy and they want to be admired. So it's this up and down,
Yeah.
black and white, and you'll notice the duplicitous. Like, well, one year he's preaching on mental health, and now he's like war, war, war.
Yeah.
It's maddening, but we have to go back to the word, Matthew 5:37. Let your yes be a yes and your no be no.
Hmm.
That's it. Like it's simple to follow God's commands. They're clear.
Oh, I'm sorry. Keep
No,
going.
I mean I could talk forever
No,
about it.
please
But
do. Yeah, we're on a roll. Yeah.
just this endless need for control, boasting that you mob proofed your church.
Mhm.
There was no outside mob.
There was a.
No.
He created this.
Now there is,
Yeah.
because his ministry at the time, I think he had like 30,000 followers on Instagram, and that was his largest platform
Yeah.
at that time.
Uh-huh.
And it was almost like he took the church's funds, because how else do you grow this quickly other than paying for it?
Yeah.
Took that and he's like, I'll show y'all. You try and silence me. So he's grown his social media to 5 million
It's
plus.
massive. He's everywhere.
So it's almost like he had to prove that we couldn't control him.
Mhm.
Except you're missing the part where, how did you pay for that? And how much did you spend on that? The church, I'm sure, would love to know. You're not going to
Yeah.
tell us that, are you? Oh, no, 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 no.
Well, and from my understanding, the financials are nowhere to be seen by the congregation, right?
No, I mean, the big numbers, like we gave this much and we produced this many baptisms.
Mhm.
Let's talk about your false teaching affecting 5 million people, and all of those people online trusting him. He
Mhm.
sounds great. You got these quick clips and they're very relevant to the culture,
Yeah.
because that's what we're supposed to be doing. But I mean, there's a repentance that needs to come as a community. And one of the things is we need to stop supporting it at home
Yeah.
so it doesn't spread. And people might say, well, Amanda, why do you even care about this? You left the church. You're part of a new church. I'm telling you, if you lived here
Yeah.
and everywhere, everyone's like, I see him all the time. People are flying in every weekend,
I
taking
heard that.
vacation
Yeah.
to hear him preach live. You can watch it online. So it's out of control. It's completely out of control.
Well, and you talked about the culture piece. Like he grasped for. I love that you put this constant grasping for proximity to more power.
Oh, yeah.
Examples you used: Theo Von, Joe Rogan, Team Tebow, etc., etc., etc. But yeah, so he does do that. Why is that a problem?
I mean, that's just like living by special set of rules with
Mhm.
special people. We're above you. Mary Cootie's below us. The elders don't have to have any accountability. The church doesn't even need to know who they are.
Mhm.
But the church sure wants to know all of your financials. And they're not going to say, hey, we expect you to tithe 10%. They're going to give you a dollar amount because they've already researched you
Mhm.
and your career. And they say, hey, you should be giving this amount. But we can't know what the elders' names are. Like, this is the special set of rules. They're special. So
Yeah.
he can talk to Theo Vaughn and try and pastor him in a podcast video,
Mhm.
or reach out because he really wants to speak to Joe Rogan about his spiritual life. Oh, and Tim Tebow, your dad died. What about the people in your church?
I know. That's what I don't like. He's making him socially acceptable by the culture before he is his people that is should be discipling. And that's what I don't understand.
Well, and it flies in the face of so many books of the Bible, Proverbs. But if we look at James, chapter 2. Okay, so if you've been at Lakeland a long time, maybe you remember teen nights. Teen nights
Yeah,
were
yeah.
great.
They were a lot of
Honored
fun.
all the volunteers, T-shirt, guns, like all kinds of giveaways. That was one way you honored everyone.
Mhm.
Those stopped.
Yeah, they did.
So it was like this love bombing. You're so amazing. Hope nobody notices we don't do this. But what hasn't stopped are these big donor lunches and dinners.
That's what I was wanting to get to.
So James 2 says, you are not to show favoritism if you are a person of faith in
Mhm.
Christ. So if someone comes in wearing gold jewelry or nice clothing, you don't say, "Oh, please come sit here," and you send the poor over there.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he's doing
Exactly. And how's he doing that?
because he has a lot of support.
Yeah.
And because I think the people in leadership there have such a pumped up sense of pride. Look at all the people we're saving.
Mhm.
That they just want to keep rolling. They just want to keep gathering. And so what it comes down to is this last week they rolled out a $224 million initiative.
Let's say that again.
$224 million initiative that they want from the community.
And why do they want this?
Uh, I mean, more buildings, redoing buildings, because, we need to make, I'm not going to get into all that. Let's take out the library and make it a podcast studio.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
Oh, they
Yeah.
took out the library that kids used to go to check out
Mm.
books and made it a podcast studio. It's all about stardom, which is
Mhm.
the opposite of the character of Christ. So I think this grasping for power is just feeding the ego. It's feeding the pride, and it's breaking down the church,
Mhm.
and it's distorting the gospel, and it's blaspheming. Like,
Yeah.
so if you do have a question for Josh, um, there's a script which you experience. I'm
Mhm.
sure so
Yep.
many people experience, but one of the things that they ask people now is, well, do you love Josh? Do you love Lakeland leadership? No, 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 no. That's
Mm.
what Jesus asked Peter. Peter, do you love me? Do you feed my sheep? Like, our loyalty is not to Josh,
Yeah.
but he thinks that he is an apostle and he's been sent here to be worshiped.
Yeah, I did notice that anytime I had a question while we were still members there about Joshua, it was strange.
Hmm.
It was like they weren't like talking down to me or anything like that, but it just they were somewhat talking around it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, but what have you thought about this? Have you prayed about it? That was the
Oh,
biggest thing.
yeah.
Have you prayed about it? Well, let's take into consideration XYZ. Like it was never validated.
Mm-mm.
It was never valid. And not that it wasn't validated. There were no questions asked. It was just kind of like, let me stick to the script. And I heard it multiple times. And
And they assume the worst about you,
they do.
but they expect you to assume the best about them.
Yes.
What?
Which I can't understand.
No.
All right. So we've got definitely some more stuff to unpack. Let's go ahead and do
Just
that.
a few. So I asked friends who have made it out of the matrix, right?
Mhm.
It is a bubble, and people on the outside can clearly see what's happening on the inside, but people on the inside are not, they're discouraged against reading outside sources.
Yeah.
Families are divided. This is like Scientology. People are followed, threatened, stalked, like they have researched you. Like it is getting to be a Scientology up there. But I reached out to a bunch of people who are on the other side, who found new church homes and said, hey, how did you navigate this? Because I know what I went through, but so we want to offer just like a hope paved roadmap. Like, what do you do after you've been gaslit by people
Mhm.
who are masquerading as agents of the light of Christ? So, number one, if you're going to get through this spiritual warfare,
Yeah.
you have to pray without ceasing. Pray for you, pray for your future church, your enemies, your family, your friends.
Mhm.
Like, you have to be completely girded in prayer. But one thing, the branding is everywhere, right? The
Mhm.
t-shirts, the hats,
Oh
the
gosh.
stickers on the cars,
Let's
the
tell the story
hoodies.
about the branding with the t-shirt. Yeah.
The free
So
t-shirt.
the free t so that's a big, big, big thing. People look forward to free t-shirt weekend. I think it happens twice a year or what? I can't
Maybe.
remember now. But what I do know is that Josh likes to pump himself up literally when it comes to these free t-shirts. One of the most recent videos I saw of him in a sermon was that these free t-shirts and pumping himself up, he put a picture up on the screen for everybody to see, and it was of him all muscled up. AI.
Jacked up. Yeah.
AI was what was used. But it was what came out of his mouth. Like I can understand maybe a joke, right? Like an innocent joke, but we're talking about Josh Howerton here. And there's no innocent joking when it comes to his sexual innuendos. So he has this picture up on the screen and he says out loud, well, we better take that down. We don't want anybody to stumble. So this is Josh Howerton's a good looking guy. He's now got muscles up, AI muscles on the screen, and he's making sure that people see it right before he says, let's not cause anybody to stumble. Do you know how many women I have heard refer to him as the hot pastor?
Well,
I know. So it's putting an image in people's minds from the pulpit
Yeah.
that should not be in people's minds. And so
No,
that's
we're
just
supposed
part
to
of the
die to
branding.
our flesh, die to ourselves. Like,
Right.
what?
But then again, we are the ones who can't take a joke, or we're jealous.
Or we just don't think that the spiritual leader should be throwing stumbling blocks and then going, oopsie,
Mhm.
did you like my AI muscles?
Yeah,
Like,
it was.
they're not even real.
I-
The whole thing is completely bizarre. Like, what are you trying to attract? What are you trying to do there? Because everything he does and they do, there is intentional.
Mhm.
It's with a purpose. How did you just draw someone into Christ with the fake muscles? Like, so someone who actually carries that that amount of muscle is not going to respect you because you just like faked it.
Yeah,
But then someone who doesn't have the muscle is going to respect you because you faked it. What?
I don't
Get
get
out of
it.
here. Get out of here.
But the branding has gone. So I remember he used to talk about not wanting people to remember uh, the things that were at the church, right? Like the comfortable things, but he wanted people to remember how they were made to feel, right? So it's completely flipped. It's done a 180. How can you come to Lake Point Church and not remember all the theatrics
Oh my
anymore?
gosh.
So
Stage lights get bigger and
and the smoke stuff,
the smoke filled
yeah,
rooms.
and the laser show. I think that's every now and then, and I really don't understand. But we left. So it's now May 26th. We left. I think it was April. Yeah, it was April 25. I don't know. I don't know necessarily what it's like now, but I do know that when I
It's more.
yeah, that's what
More of the
I've
same.
heard, and I do try to keep uh, touch on what's going on because I do have friends that still attend Lake Point, and I'm concerned for them. I'm very concerned,
Mhm.
and it's hard to have a conversation with. Of course, I don't want to beat anybody over the head about it, but we
Yeah.
are called to caution others, right?
Yes,
And to keep them from stumbling. So I'm it's a hard spot to be in.
it is.
And when we haven't even touched on this, but when we decided to leave in April, I don't know what we expected from our friends or
Mm,
people or
yeah.
acquaintances even. I don't know what we expected, but I didn't expect what happened.
Yeah.
We were completely shut out.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
There was maybe a handful of people, the ones that we are really close with that noticed, and of course they knew, actually we were close with them, they knew what was going on. But outside of our close friends, the people we've known for 20 plus years,
Mhm.
we were completely shut off.
Because you're demonic now.
Mhm.
You're satanic. If you don't follow Josh,
Yeah.
love Josh, and go along with all of his schemes, no matter what they are,
Yeah.
no matter what he thinks about them, you are
Mhm.
demonic.
I mean, one thing I heard is that I was too accepting of mental health. Like, that was
Oh,
a thing. I was too
because we
accepting,
shouldn't value
and
our brains.
yeah, it didn't belong in the life group apparently.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
But
yeah.
he says, but in Romans, it says, do not conform to the patterns of the world. Be transformed by the renewal of your mind.
Mhm.
Did they skip that?
Apparently,
Mm.
apparently.
It's frustrating.
But yeah, just from what I've seen, on social media, this is where I've gotten all is the branding.
Yeah.
The amount of work that goes into
In
their
one little
branding.
frame on the podcast, he'll have a brand here, a brand on the mic, and a brand
Yeah.
on his shirt, maybe a different on a mug.
Yeah.
3 to 4, and 2 to 3, 4 podcasts a week.
Yeah. I don't
How do you have
understand it.
time to write that? Oh, well, you don't. You use AI
Yeah.
and you tweet about how to use AI for sermon prep. And so
Oh, yeah.
everyone's like, oh, you're reading a chat GPT script for all of these podcasts all week. So are we being led by the spirit or are we being led by man-made
Yeah.
AI?
Well, and the crowd that he, runs with too, he's got ties to several people that we as Christians shouldn't have ties to.
Mark Driscoll.
Mark Driscoll. We actually will put the rise and fall of Mars Hill. We will put that link in the show notes as well, because
Very important.
we're actually seeing some of that unfold, I think.
All of it. And
Yeah.
the Carl Lentz, I mean, he was disgraced from the ministry and he was all about celebrities and
Mm-hmm.
celebrity ties and this appearance, this bravado, the body, the shirt. Like, come on.
Yeah.
It's like Josh washed all of these false teachers and kind of roll them into one.
Well,
It's crazy.
John Bevere, I can't remember.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I just lost where he was from.
I don't
That
know.
I can't. I'll remember it.
And people love him, so this is
Oh my
gonna
goodness, yeah, I can't.
stick in their craw.
I'll put the link in. There's
Yeah,
definitely some
sweet.
information that you need to know about John Bevere. He was actually a guest of Josh Howerton on the podcast,
Yeah.
but we'll put that link in the show notes because I don't want to butcher that. But let's continue.
Well, just a way to get out. So, pray without ceasing. Pray for every time you see the brand, pray for them because the whole outside world can see what's going on. And honestly, like the bubble needs to burst. And not that the church needs to be torn down, none of that.
No. That's
But
not what we're saying.
confession, repentance, reconciliation. This is sanctification. This is what we do as a church. So, however the Lord wants to do it, let's do
Mhm.
it. Number two, one of this big things is to find two personal connections. God says, where two or three gather in my name, there I am. So if you could find two safe people to share your story with, like the story you shared with me,
Mhm.
we are saved. Revelation 12:11. We overcome powers of evil by the word of our testimony and the blood of the Lamb.
Mhm.
Well, the blood of the Lamb has already been spilled. So let's give our testimony and share it with safe people that can go, okay,
Yeah.
I trust you. I believe you. I'm here for you. And it's just one way to guard from isolation. Number three, reach out to people from other churches.
Yeah.
People who go to other churches, and you're going to find when you visit, like we did, several, that there are fantastic other churches in your area, unless you live in a rural place. We're
Mhm.
very blessed in Dallas Fort Worth with tons of churches. But what I didn't realize was like all of these churches have been built up to receive all the refugees coming out of Lake Point. And
Mm.
they do. And
Oh, wow.
it's part of their ministry now
Hmm.
is all the churches around us are like, here comes another one.
Yeah.
Here they come.
I didn't think
And
about that.
they're ready. I mean, the pastors know. Like, Lake Point used to be a city on the hill.
Mhm.
Everyone looked up to, like, wow, whatever they're doing. And now it's like, oh no, it's a cautionary tale.
It is.
So just don't isolate. Make sure to grieve. Go through the process, but don't do it alone. And return when you go to new churches. You're gonna remember what it felt like to be new,
Yeah.
and you're gonna remember what it's like to return to your first love when you first fell in love with the Lord. One thing I really needed to do was practice new or brush up on old spiritual disciplines. So
Yeah.
I would listen to some worship songs and I was like, oh, I can't even hear that right now. So refresh my playlist. I got a new journal.
Mhm.
If you need to pray somewhere different or journal somewhere different, like you've been in your prayer closet, take it on your porch. Like just mix things up. If you need to start walking to kind of process it, that's what Jesus and the disciples did.
Yeah.
And then things like maybe you need to get more in like the liturgical calendar. Maybe you need to do Lent or an Advent study by yourself. Maybe you need to reach out and do a different Bible study at a different church.
Mhm.
The Lord will guide you, but I would encourage you to not ignore your spiritual disciplines, but revive them.
That's really great advice. I'll keep the other couple's name private, but we sought wisdom from you and Phil, and then this other couple. And you're right about limiting that who you go to because you can get just way too many ideas and you can become confused really quick. Mind you, we're leaving a church for 25 years,
Yeah, your
close to
whole
25
community.
years, all the community to nothing, to being completely isolated and shut off, aside from you and Phil and this other couple, and like I said, just a small handful
Mhm.
of people. But we were encouraged to grieve.
Yeah, you have to.
I didn't expect that. For one, I don't deal with grief very well as it is. I don't honestly really know how to process it like I should.
It's horrible.
But this and not having anybody to reach out to that would wanna hear, nobody wants to hear that story.
No.
It's a taboo type thing.
Mm-mm.
Don't you shouldn't leave a church, shouldn't question the pastor. Um, but when we were encouraged to grieve and just kinda be still for a while, visit some other churches, don't jump right into
Yep.
serving, don't jump right into a life group, just go and be new.
Mhm.
That was some of the best advice we received because it gave us permission.
Yeah.
What we were needing was permission because what we thought we were doing was maybe wrong.
Yeah.
So to get that permission is just it's key, and just know that you have that permission. If this is something that you choose to do, leave Lake Point. It's kind of what we're trying to give here as a roadmap to hope, like you said.
Yeah.
Um, you have permission.
Yeah.
You're not tied down by anyone.
We're part of the
Yeah.
Big C
Mhm.
church. We're part of the global body of Christ.
Mhm.
And we need to be reminded, especially when it gets very controlled. I mean, it's a cult mentality.
Mhm.
I know people don't like that word, but
Yeah.
it is. The information is controlled. I mean, how many times a sermon does he say, let me tell you how to think about that?
Yes. Yeah.
No, no,
Well, and
that's not
apparently
what
it's his way or the highway anyway.
yeah, uh, ultimately,
Yeah.
immediately. Yeah, it's across the board, demands complete loyalty.
Mhm.
Um, oh man, there's so much there, but yeah, definitely
You've got
seeing
the
new
floor.
churches is just so eye-opening and lovely. That was one thing I felt the Lord kind of stirring in me before we even wanted to leave. that I need to teach my girls how to find a church. Like they're going to go to college, they're going to maybe move somewhere else, and
Mhm.
they've only known this church. How are they going to know how to find a new church? And so I would ask them, "Hey, do y'all want?" Nope. And then when they were done, they were like, "Yep, let's go."
Yeah.
So that was very interesting. Another one that I forgot that I did this, and I did it for my own reasons because people who were attached to me were being threatened. But you may need to block and bless some people.
I like that. Block and bless.
You can forgive them and love them and need distance. Like maybe aren't reconciled, but you
Mhm.
do love them and you care for them, and you're like, I forgive you. I was in that position 2 years ago,
Yeah.
but you may need distance. And I mean, I had a woman tell me recently she had to block me because I was affecting her mental health.
Oh, yeah.
She's like, but now I realize what you were saying is true. So mark and avoid. Like, okay, this is out of line with scripture. I'm going to avoid it and turn away. And it's so fascinating what happens to your faith life. What you realize has atrophied
Mm.
when you pull
Mhm.
out that false teacher and that worship, that celebrity culture, and then you're just left with you and the Lord, and you're like,
That's right. Yeah.
oh, wow, I was hyped up. I was addicted to excitement. I cared about this too much. And so to be stripped down
Mhm.
to focus on him is super important. The other thing, when you talked about the rise and fall of Marcel podcast, there's so many resources out there, but that is huge
That's a
because it
big
goes
one.
step by step. So I would encourage you to learn about what you've been through so that you can be a safe haven for
Mhm.
people when they come out. That's super important. If you don't understand what you went through and you
Yeah,
can't name it, it's a little bit more difficult to empathize with people.
that's true.
And the last thing is do not be afraid to warn people. God tells us, test the fruit,
Mm.
you will know them by their fruit. He tells us so many times to not fall in line with false teachers, with people who are masquerading as agents of light. So don't be afraid of that. That's actually part of our repentance because I played a part in this too.
Mm.
Oh, we could talk about that forever. But a lot of people have contacted me. We were life group leaders, and anytime there was any posts online or something, they didn't even train me to do it. I would
Mhm.
just defend the church immediately. So I had to apologize. So that's part of my repentance is saying, hey, we should be calling these things out and we shouldn't be afraid. On that note, one thing I mean, we're not here by ourselves. There's
Yeah.
thousands of people behind us, hundreds of people we know very closely who are outraged, upset, and done.
Mhm.
Done, done, done. So when they find out that there's a $224 million initiative rolling out and that they want more of
Yeah.
our community's finances, I would encourage our community to just start saying no.
Mhm.
If the leadership cannot be transparent with their elder board, with their bylaws. Like if you've asked to see the bylaws of the church that are new, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
If you haven't and you try, you're going to get all resistance. And then just the budget. Like, how much has Josh spent of the church money on Josh Howerton's personal social media and Josh Howerton's personal podcast that he plugs at the beginning of church sermons on YouTube? Like, it's it's
And
not
it's
okay.
personal comfort
Yes.
too.
So I think that there's a leadership crisis in Lake Point. I think there's a deep theological problem in Lake Point, and I think that one way we can take our control back and obey the Lord and not, you know, cower to the fear of man is to
Mhm.
say, hey, actually, if you're going to expect us to be fully forthcoming with everything in our finances, we're going to expect that of you. And I think
Yeah.
that's fair, and that's how any healthy church should be led. And so I would just encourage you, if you're still in the church body of Lake Point, that, you would guard your heart and your
Yes.
finances and your family and your faith and all things. So,
Mhm. Yeah. So we're on the roadmap still.
oh, well, that's all I
Oh,
got.
okay.
You have
No,
anything that
no,
you,
no.
you and Beverly
Um,
really, that really helped y'all?
well, like that's what I was mentioning, just being able to have that permission. I think that's huge. I didn't realize how much we needed that permission.
Yeah.
We've been just trained and groomed to not question, right? And Josh is extremely charismatic, and he's a very, very good speaker. Like he's got so many great things that he could
Yeah.
do,
You gotta
right?
use
And
that for good, though.
for you, yeah, he's got so many great things that he could use for good, and it just doesn't seem like he's doing that at all. And it's extremely concerning, and we're concerned for the people that we love. We
Yeah.
we have not been able to go to them yet. We haven't just We haven't felt necessarily like confident, I guess.
Yeah.
However, when the idea of this podcast came to light a few weeks back, we received a lot of encouragement, and
Good.
you funneled that to us because you were receiving a lot of what people were experiencing
Yeah.
now, and
Things are changing.
things
Things
are
are the
changing,
goodies.
and you were really great about passing that on to us, so we would be encouraged as well because it's just it doesn't feel good,
Mm-mm.
and I know we're not just concerned with our feelings. That's not what the point of this is. We didn't know how to behave after leaving Lake Point, and
'Cause
that's
there's no
concerning.
instruction for that, because
Yeah,
they don't want you to leave the church.
yeah,
They want you to stay there and, give all your time and all your money and all your dedication. So they're not gonna say, "Hey, here's how to help you on your way out." They're just gonna
yeah.
say, "There's the door."
It was odd, and, I will tell you one thing, you like you mentioned, you get to discover your first love again,
Mm.
and that's been it's been a little scary, though, like, I didn't realize how much, my spiritual discipline was lacking
Yeah.
until all that all that, yeah, it just
Yep.
I didn't
Same.
realize that I was phoning in the lessons for life group
Mm.
because I was a life group leader there that year that we were praying through leaving. Looking back, I was just phoning those in, and I wasn't necessarily engaged. I was operating on fear.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
It yeah.
And if there's anything that we could encourage those who are listening to do is to just to know and truly believe that you're not alone. Like, you're not alone if you're feeling this way. It's a
Definitely.
scary. Yeah, it's different. It's not going to feel good, but we would just encourage you to pray through that, like she said, without ceasing. Reach out to somebody who maybe has recently left to get their story. Um, Comment on the platforms that this is going. So Amanda's really great at responding. You really are. You're really good at this. So she will not leave you hanging on a comment. She'll respond. So please do that. And again, you can email at info@zachmoloch.com. We're going to put all the ways that you can contact us within the show notes. We're going to kind of break down this roadmap of hope for you. I do know that sometime in the near future, there's going to be um, maybe a PDF or some sort of resource, not necessarily a PDF,
Yeah,
but a
just
resource.
give some information, links,
Mhm.
some great authorities in this area,
Yeah.
people who are, trauma
Mhm.
informed and seminary trained that can really, really speak truth to this.
Yeah. And that's important. And that's what I want to finish with is that this is not a podcast episode to bash anyone. It's to give hope to those who don't know what to do
Yeah.
in the midst of spiritual abuse and church hurt. And it's real. It needs to be addressed. And like she said, that Lake Point leadership needs to really be held accountable.
Yeah.
And that's our call to action is for more and more people to speak up and know that you will have support. There are hundreds of people standing behind myself and Amanda right now. Excuse me, myself, my wife Beverly, Amanda, and her husband Phil. Like we our much better halves are in the other room giving us their support, and we want you to know that you have our support as well, and that you're loved and you're not alone. So, what's a final thought? What can we leave with?
Um, I think just get in the word.
Hmm.
Like, God left us this, preserved it for us so that we could interact with him and know his heart. And we cannot test anything that's outside of him unless we know him.
Hmm.
And so Jesus became the word, and Jesus is the word. Jesus came to us in flesh, and he is the word. And so for me, a lot of people struggle with getting back in it after something like
Hmm.
this.
Yep.
And Jesus is the only one who can heal us from these ailings and failings. So, but it's also direction. I mean, I was
It
convicted to
is.
apologize in my Good Friday reading, and it wasn't even about an apology. It was just like on my heart that you need to apologize to these women that you defended him to. So you never know what God's going to do,
Mhm.
but you won't know if you don't connect with him. So
That's true. You never know. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Again, please, we want to hear from you. We're going to encourage that. Info@zachmoloch.com. Send us your emails, comment here, comment on the other social platforms. We will respond. So thanks for taking the time out of your day to listen to us.
thank you.
Yeah,
There's a
it's a
lot.
lot to take in, and you'll learn more as you reach out. I want you to know that. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, we'll see you next time on the Who We Are podcast, the Mental Health Podcast by Zach Moloch. Take care.